In a galaxy where there is only war, what is faith? Amidst a million worlds drowning in a sea of fire, amidst the screams of the damned and the ceaseless clang of metal on metal, what is the value of an oath? Is faith a fragile shield for the weak-willed, a hollow comfort before an endless night? Or is it the sharpest of weapons forged in the fires of zealotry, a blade that distinguishes not between foe and friend? Is it the light that guides humanity through the long dark? Or is it a great pyre consuming heretic and innocent alike upon its path of annihilation? For more than 10 millennia, the Imperium of man has existed upon the answers to those questions. It is built upon the bones of 1 trillion souls, bound together by a blind faith in an emperor who has been silent upon the golden throne. But among the countless warriors who have fought and died beneath the shadow of the two-headed Aquila, there is one Chapter 1 brotherhood that has taken their answer to a terrifying and glorious extreme. To them, faith is not a shield, it is an iron gauntlet. To them, war is not a means to an end, it is a form of prayer. They do not fight to protect planets or build empires. They fight because it is their sole purpose for existence, a never-ending holy war ignited from the ashes of the greatest betrayal. They are the embodiment of righteous hatred, a vow etched into their very gen seed, an oath that will only end when the last enemy of mankind has been ground to dust. They are knights in a galaxy that has forgotten honor. They are fanatics in an age that cries out for heroes. They are the Emperor's swords never sheathed. They are the Black Templars. And this is the tale of their endless crusade and their unbreakable faith. Every great crusade begins with a single flame. And the flame that birthed the Black Templars erupted from the heart of one man, a warrior whose name became legend, a symbol of unyielding loyalty and unparalleled martial skill. His name was Sigismund, the First Templar, and his story is the foundation for everything the chapter represents. To understand the zeal of the Black Templars, one must first understand the man Sigismund. Before the horrific civil war of the Horus heresy tore the galaxy asunder, Sigismund was the first captain of the Imperial Fists Legion, the loyal sons of the Primarch Rogel Dorn. In a legion famed for its steadfastness, discipline, and impregnable defense, Sigismund was a deadly exception. He was the personification of the attack, the tip of the spear. While his brothers were the fortress wall, Sigismund was the sword that struck out from behind it. His appearance was a perfect reflection of his inner nature, stern ascetic, with eyes that seemed to peer into the soul of his counterpart and judge what they found. He lacked the humor of the Emperor's other sons, nor the ostentation of other legionary champions. He possessed only focus, a terrifying focus on the art of war. For Sigismund, the battlefield was not a stage for glory or courage. It was a crucible where loyalty was tested and enemies were annihilated. He did not seek honor. He executed his duty. Rogel Dorn, his stone-like Primarch father, saw in Sigismund a purity of purpose that even he respected. Sigismund was the embodiment of Dorn's will to attack a perfect instrument of war. But beneath that cold exterior and peerless skill was a soul tormented by prophecy. In the early days of the Great Crusade, before the shadow of betrayal fell, Sigismund met Euphrates Keeler, one of the first living saints of the Imperium. It was she who, in a moment of divinely granted foresight, looked into Sigismund's future and spoke the words that would haunt him forever. She said that he would carry within him a sorrow and a rage so great that it could never be forgiven. Another prophecy from the Primarch Sanguinius himself, the Angel of the Blood Angels, echoed a similar refrain that Sigismund possessed a fury that even Karn of the World Eaters would envy. For a warrior to whom loyalty and honor were everything, these words were an unimaginable burden. They planted a seed of doubt in his mind. Would he one day turn traitor? Would the latent rage within him consume his reason and turn him into the very monster he despised? Sigismund wrestled with this darkness, turning it into fuel for his martial fire, vowing to prove the prophecy wrong with every action, every sword stroke. He would be so loyal that none could question it, He would fight so fiercely that no enemy could stand against him. The prophecy, rather than breaking him, forged him into an even sharper weapon. And then the storm broke. Horus Lupercal, Warmaster, most beloved son, turned traitor. The galaxy was plunged into fire. The Horus heresy had begun. In that brutal war, Sigismund's role was redefined. When Rogel Dorn was tasked with fortifying the Imperial Palace on Terra for the inevitable siege, he chose Sigismund for a new symbolic and deadly role. Sigismund was named the first Emperor's champion. Clad in black armor, wielding the black sword, he was no longer a mere captain. He was the embodiment of the Emperor's wrath, a challenge issued to all traitors. His mission was simple: to seek out and destroy the champions of the enemy in single combat, to sow terror and disarray in their ranks. Throughout the siege of Terra, Sigismund became a living legend. He fought upon the crumbling walls, in the dark corridors of the defense network, and across fields carpeted with the dead. Every swing of his sword was a death sentence. Every traitor who fell beneath his blade was a testament to his unbreakable loyalty. He became a symbol for the defenders, a black-clad specter of death for the attackers. Two of his duels during this time passed into legend. The first was against Karn, captain of the 8th Company of the World Eaters. Upon the blood-soaked soil of Terra, two of the greatest duelists of the Astartes clashed. This was not just a contest of skill, but a conflict of philosophies. Karn, already beginning his descent into the blind rage of Khorne, fought with the ferocity of a wild beast. Every blow was a roar of pure anger. Sigismund, in contrast, fought with the cold calm of an executioner. He had no fury, only lethal focus. He parried Karn's frenzied attacks, weathered the storm of blows upon his shield, and waited. He waited for the moment when Karn's rage would create an opening. And when it came, Sigismund struck not to kill, but to defeat, to prove that disciplined loyalty would always triumph over blind rage. The second duel, a more subtle but no less intense confrontation, was with Sevatar, the Prince of Crows, first captain of the Night Lords. Taken prisoner aboard the enemy's vessel, Sigismund faced Sevatar, not just with a blade, but with his will. Sevatar, a cynic and a pragmatist, mocked Sigismund's loyalty, calling it blindness. He argued there was no honor, only victory by any means. Their duel was a dance of razor-sharp words and lightning-fast strikes. Sevatar fought with the guile and cruelty of a nocturnal predator, while Sigismund answered with perfect technique and an unshakable resolve. The duel ended without a clear victor, but it revealed the depth of Sigismund. He was not merely a killing machine, but a warrior of ironclad conviction, a faith that could not be swayed by cynicism or nihilism. Finally, the siege of Terra reached its climax. The Emperor faced Horus, and the galaxy held its breath. When the Emperor returned, his body broken, but Horus destroyed, Sigismund was among the first to witness the tragedy. He saw the broken body of Sanguinius, the angelic Primarch. He saw his father Rogel Dorn near death, an arm torn away, his spirit shattered. And he saw the Emperor, a dying corpse, being carried to the Golden Throne. In that moment, everything in Sigismund changed. The grief, the loss, and the rage he had suppressed for so long erupted into a singular purifying flame. Keeler's prophecy had come true. He bore a rage that could never be forgiven, but it was not the rage of betrayal. It was the rage of vengeance. Standing amidst the ruins of a broken dream, Sigismund swore an oath. He swore that he would never rest. He would never rebuild. He would only hunt. He and his like-minded brothers would pursue the traitors to the ends of the galaxy, through every dark corner of the Eye of Terror, until the last of them had paid for their sins. It was not the oath of a warrior. It was the oath of a Templar. The seed of the Black Templars had been sown in ash and blood, centuries past. Sigismund, as the first High Marshal of the Black Templars, kept his vow. He led his chapter on a relentless crusade. But every legend has an end. During the First Black Crusade, Abaddon, the despoiler Horus's heir, emerged from the Eye of Terror. Sigismund, now a warrior 1,000 years old, led his fleet to confront the old foe. Aboard his flagship, the Black Sword, he challenged Abaddon. It was a battle between the past and the present. Sigismund, though aged, fought with the skill of a master. But Abaddon, empowered by chaos, was the brutal future. Sigismund fought valiantly, but he was finally struck down. Yet even in death, he was victorious. With his last breath, he plunged his black sword into Abaddon's armor, a wound the traitor would carry as a permanent reminder. His final words, etched into the sword and returned to his chapter, were not a lament. They were an accusation, a declaration that Abaddon was a failure, a puppet of forces he could not control. Sigismund was dead, but his legacy was immortal. He left behind a chapter forged in his image, uncompromising, relentless, and forever burning with the fire of an ancient oath. The birth of the Black Templars was not merely the result of one man's vow, but the product of a chaotic era, of a broken legion, and a Primarch tormented by grief. To understand why this chapter is so different, we must return to the time immediately following the Horus Heresy, a period known as the Scouring. The embers of the Civil War had cooled, but the wound it left in the soul of the Imperium would never heal. And no one felt that wound more deeply than Rogel Dorn, the Primarch of the Imperial Fists. The Praetorian of Terra had failed in his most sacred duty to protect the Emperor. He had watched his father be interred upon the Golden Throne, had seen his brothers Sanguinius and so many others fall. Dorn, who had always been the embodiment of steadfastness and iron will, was now drowned in a deep sea of guilt and pain. He blamed himself for not stopping Horus, for not being strong enough, for not being at the Emperor's side in the final battle. This grief made him more rigid and harsh than ever before. He drove his legion into brutal purging campaigns, hunting the remnants of the traitor legions with a cold fury. There was no forgiveness, no mercy, only retribution. The Imperial Fists became the instrument of their Primarch's pain, and the entire legion was shrouded in an atmosphere of mourning and self-recrimination. It was in this context that a new crisis erupted, one that would reshape the entire Adeptus Astartes. Robuta Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, after stabilizing his own realm, presented the High Lords of Terra with a document that would change everything: the Codex Astartes. It was a comprehensive military doctrine designed to prevent a civil war on the scale of the Horus Heresy from ever happening again. Its central tenet was the dissolution of the immense Space Marine legions, each with the power to overthrow an entire sector into smaller chapters of only 1,000 warriors each. To Guilliman, this was a logical and necessary solution. Power concentrated in the hands of one man, a Primarch, had proven catastrophic. By dispersing this power, the Imperium would be safer. But to Rogel Dorn, the Codex Astartes was an insult. He saw it as an accusation, a declaration that he and his loyal brothers could not be trusted. His legion had bled to defend Terra. They had held the line when others had fled, and now they were being asked to tear themselves apart, to weaken themselves. To Dorn, this was the act of an opportunist, a man who was not present for the most important battle, but now sought to impose his will upon those who were. The tension between the two loyal Primarchs reached a boiling point. Dorn called Guilliman a coward. Guilliman accused Dorn of being a potential traitor clinging to a failed power structure. The fleets of the Ultramarines and the Imperial Fists nearly came to blows in the skies above Terra. The Imperium, having just escaped one civil war, was on the brink of another. To break the stalemate and to punish himself for his pride, Rogel Dorn did the unthinkable. He accepted a seemingly suicidal challenge. Perturabo, Primarch of the Iron Warriors, Dorn's bitter arch-nemesis, had constructed a massive impregnable fortress, an iron cage, and dared the Imperial Fists to attack it. It was an obvious trap, an invitation to a slaughter, and Dorn accepted. He led his entire legion into Perturabo's trap. The Iron Cage campaign was one of the darkest and bloodiest chapters in the history of the Imperial Fists. For weeks they threw themselves against a fortress designed to grind them to dust. They were caught in killing corridors, subjected to relentless bombardment, and forced to fight their arch-enemies in the worst possible conditions. Thousands of Imperial fists died. They died not for a strategic objective, but to wash away the sins of their Primarch. Dorn had sought punishment, and Perturabo had gleefully given it to him. The siege only ended when Robuta Guilliman and the Ultramarines arrived to rescue them. The Imperial fists were shattered, but they were cleansed. In the blood and suffering of the Iron Cage, Rogel Dorn finally purged himself of his pain and guilt. He accepted the truth that the age of the legions was over. With a heavy heart, he agreed to divide the Imperial fists, according to the tenets of the Codex Astartes. This was the moment of the second founding. From one great legion, many new chapters were born. The Crimson Fists, the Fists Exemplar, and others were established, each inheriting a part of Rogel Dorn's legacy. But one group of warriors, the most zealous, the most obsessed with the betrayal, followed a different path. Under the leadership of Sigismund, these warriors gathered. They were the ones who had witnessed the horrors of the siege of Terra most directly. For them, Sigismund's vow of vengeance was not just words, it was their reason for being. When Dorn agreed to split the legion, Sigismund stepped forward. He asked for no homeworld, no fortress to defend. He asked only for the right to continue the war, and so the Black Templars were born. They were born from Sigismund's vow of vengeance, tempered in Dorn's grief, and legitimized by the second founding. Sigismund became their first High Marshal, and he shaped the chapter according to his ironclad beliefs. From the very beginning, they were different. While other successor chapters like the Crimson Fists built mighty fortresses on their homeworlds, emulating Dorn's defensive legacy, the Black Templars refused. They declared that their only home was their crusade fleets, their only fortress, their faith in the Emperor. They would never stop, never settle. They would forever be sword brethren pilgrims traversing the galaxy to enact the Emperor's justice. This difference was fundamental. The Black Templars were not a defensive force. They were an institutionalized eternal crusade. They were the rage of Sigismund, given to 1,000 warriors, and then to countless thousands more. They were the most extreme answer to Horus's betrayal, an answer written in blood and fire across the stars. To truly comprehend the might and the terror of the Black Templars, we must dissect their very structure, a war machine lubricated by zealotry and fueled by millennia of hatred. They are an anomaly among the Adeptus Astartes, a chapter that has forsaken rigid military doctrines to follow its own path, a path charted not by the Codex Astartes, but by their own ironclad dogmas. The most significant and obvious difference is their organizational structure. The Black Templars do not adhere to the 1,000 warrior limit dictated by the Codex. Their true numbers are a closely guarded secret, but they are certainly far greater, likely numbering several thousand, perhaps even over 6,000 Astartes at their peak. This strength is not concentrated in one place. Instead, they are divided into numerous crusade fleets. Each fleet is a completely autonomous force commanded by a marshal capable of waging large-scale wars across the galaxy's segments. Some fleets might consist of only a few hundred warriors, while others might number in the thousands. This decentralized structure gives them incredible flexibility. They can be present in dozens of war zones simultaneously, from fighting orcs at Armageddon to purging chaos cults in the Segmentum Obscurus. However, it also has its drawbacks. Gathering the full strength of the chapter in one place is nearly impossible, and at times fleets can become isolated and destroyed. At the head of the entire chapter is the High Marshal, the direct successor of Sigismund. He is not just a military commander, but a spiritual leader, the bearer of the original vow. Names like Helbrecht Ludold or Sigenandus are legends, men who have led crusades that spanned centuries. Under the High Marshal are the marshals who command the crusade fleets, and below them are the castellans who command smaller units or temporary garrisons. Their most elite force is the Sword Brethren. These are the most veteran, battle-hardened warriors who have proven their courage and faith in hundreds of battles. They serve as the personal guard of the marshals and are often equipped with the finest weapons and armor. To be inducted into the ranks of the Sword Brethren is the highest honor a Templar can achieve. However, the heart and soul of the Black Templars' fighting strength lies in their Crusader squads. And this is their most unique feature, the greatest deviation from standard tactical structure. A Crusader squad does not consist entirely of fully trained Space Marines. Instead, it is a mix of initiates, full battle brothers, and neophytes recruits in the final stages of their training. Each neophyte is assigned to an initiate as a mentor, a teacher. This master-apprentice relationship is not forged in quiet cloisters, but upon the bloody anvil of the battlefield. A neophyte learns to fight to survive, and most importantly, to believe by fighting alongside his mentor. He must witness sacrifice, face the enemy himself, and prove his piety through action. Only when his mentor deems him ready is the neophyte elevated to the rank of initiate and granted his full suit of power armor. This system ensures that every Black Templar is not just a super soldier, but a fire-tested zealot. But organizational structure is only the skeleton. The flesh and blood of the Black Templars are their ironclad dogmas. And the central tenet, the one that makes them so different and at times dangerous, is their worship of the God Emperor. While most Space Marine chapters adhere to the original Imperial truth that the Emperor was a great man, a leader but not a god, the Black Templars utterly reject it. They are one of the few chapters to openly and fervently worship the Emperor as a true divinity, the savior of mankind. The irony is bitter. The Emperor himself fought to destroy religion to build an empire based on reason and science. It was Lorgar and the Word-bearers who were so harshly punished for daring to worship him. And yet now the sons of Rogel Dorn, one of the most loyal and pragmatic Primarchs, have become the most fanatical adherents of the very faith the Emperor denied. For them, every battle is an act of worship. Every enemy slain is a sacrifice laid before the Golden Throne. Their chaplains are not mere spiritual advisors. They are warrior priests who preach the Emperor's holy word and condemn heretics on the battlefield. From this belief springs an undying hatred, the abhorrence of the witch. Their hatred for psykers originates with Sigismund himself, who witnessed the terrible destruction wrought by the sorcerers of chaos during the Horus Heresy. To a Black Templar, anyone who wields the power of the warp is a potential gateway to corruption and an affront to the purity of humanity. They adhere absolutely to the Edict of Nicaea, an ancient decree forbidding the use of psykers within the Space Marine ranks. As a result, the Black Templars have no librarius. They have no librarians. They consider these warrior sorcerers to be an abomination, yet the bitter paradox is that they must still rely on psykers to function. To navigate the warp, their fleets require the mutant navigators. To communicate across interstellar distances, they need astropaths. The Black Templars resolve this contradiction with a controlled contempt. They view these individuals as necessary but unclean tools. The astropaths and navigators aboard their ships live in isolation and fear, treated more like useful animals than people. A constant reminder of the fragility of reality and the dangers of the warp. Finally, their faith is crystallized into the 4 holy vows. Before a major battle, the Templars may swear one of these 4 oaths, focusing their will and their fury on a single purpose. The first vow, suffer not the unclean to live. The unclean in their eyes is a broad definition. It is the Xenos who dare trespass on human domains, the foul mutant, and above all the heretic who has turned from the Emperor's light. When this vow is sworn, they become merciless executioners. During the Vinculus Crusade, they purged an entire star system, simply because its people had begun to worship a minor warp entity. They burned cities and slaughtered millions not out of cruelty, but because they believed it was an act of mercy freeing those souls from eternal damnation. The second vow, uphold the honor of the Emperor. Honor to a Templar is not personal glory. It means never retreating before the enemy no matter the odds. It means accepting any challenge, especially from enemy champions, to prove the superiority of the loyal over the traitor and the alien. It means to fight and die gloriously, knowing that one's sacrifice will be a testament to their faith. The third vow, and perhaps the most iconic, abhor the witch, destroy the witch. This vow turns them into the galaxy's most fearsome witch hunters. When sworn, they will focus all their efforts on hunting down and exterminating any individual or organization that uses psychic powers. There are tales of Black Templar fleets bypassing more strategically important targets just to pursue a minor psyker coven, slaughtering them to the last with a religious hatred. And the final vow, accept any challenge, no matter the odds. This is the spirit of the Emperor's champion in its purest form. It is the rejection of logic and strategy in favor of an act of absolute faith. When a Templar swears this oath, he is saying that no enemy is too strong, no fortress too impregnable. They will hurl themselves into the most hopeless battles with the conviction that the Emperor's will shall protect them, or failing that their death will be a beacon to light the way for others. It is a self-destructive yet glorious mentality, one that has won impossible victories and also caused catastrophic losses. Through this structure, these dogmas and these vows, the Black Templars have become exactly what they were intended to be: a sword that never stops swinging, guided by a faith that can never be broken. The history of the Black Templars is not written in ink on vellum, but carved with chainswords into the bones of their enemies. It is a chronicle of endless crusades led by warriors whose names have become synonymous with fury and piety. To understand the chapter, we must look to its greatest heroes. Standing tallest among them all in the current era is High Marshal Helbrecht. He is the living embodiment of the Black Templars, proud, uncompromising, and consumed by a personal vendetta. Helbrecht was not born to command. He earned his station through centuries of ceaseless combat, rising from the rank of initiate to become a sword brother, then Castellan Marshal, and finally, upon the death of High Marshal Cordell, he was elected the supreme leader of the chapter. Under his command, the Black Templars have launched some of the most brutal and successful crusades in their recent history, but Helbrecht's fate and that of the entire chapter was forever altered during the Third War for Armageddon. There he faced one of the Imperium's greatest enemies, Gazg'Kul Mag Uruk Thraka, the great Orc warlord. Helbrecht, in his pride, led a boarding action on Gazg'Kul's flagship. He fought and butchered his way through thousands of orcs, finally confronting the warlord himself. Their duel was a clash of titans, but Helbrecht was defeated. Gazg'Kul did not merely beat him, he humiliated him. He broke Helbrecht's sword, struck him down, and left him alive, not as an act of mercy, but as a statement that even mankind's greatest champion was no match for him. That humiliation became the fire that reforged Helbrecht. He swore a personal oath, a vow of vengeance that would echo across the galaxy. He swore to hunt Gazg'Kul Thraka to the very ends of the universe, that his crusade would have no other purpose than to find and kill the Orc warlord. This vow reshaped the entire strategy of the Black Templars. Fleets were dispatched across the void not just to fight the Imperium's enemies, but to hunt for any trace of Gazg'Kul. Helbrecht's personal vendetta had become the holy war of an entire chapter. If Helbrecht is the chapter's fury, then Chaplain Grimaldus is its indomitable soul. His story, the saga of the hero of Hellsreach, is one of the greatest epics of the 41st millennium. During the Third War for Armageddon, as billions of orcs descended upon the planet, the hive city of Hellsreach was one of the most critical targets. Grimaldus, then a relatively young reclusiarch, was given a seemingly suicidal mission to lead a small contingent of Black Templars to remain and defend the city's main temple to the death. As High Marshal Helbrecht departed to join the orbital battle, he told Grimaldus that there was no hope of victory, only the hope of a glorious death. Grimaldus accepted his fate. He and his warriors marched to the temple, and before the eyes of thousands of desperate soldiers and citizens, he planted his chapter's standard in the ground and uttered the words that have become immortal. "I have dug my grave in this place, and I will fight any beast that bears down on it." The defense of Hell's Reach was hell on earth. Millions of orcs flooded the city. The walls fell. Imperial Guard regiments were annihilated. But Grimaldus and his Templars held. From the temple, he became the heart of the resistance. He was more than a warrior. He was a symbol. His words, broadcast over the city's Vox system, rallied the spirits of despairing soldiers and terrified citizens. He fought alongside the titans of Legio Invigilata, watching these god machines fall in glory. He led counterattacks deep into the enemy lines, his Crozius Arcanum crushing orc skulls and his voice roaring litanies to the Emperor. He was grievously wounded, buried under rubble, but he survived. When the war was over and Imperial reinforcements finally arrived, they found Grimaldus, the last living Templar, still standing guard over the ruins of the temple, surrounded by the corpses of 1,000 foes. He had not just defended a building, he had defended the soul of a city. He became the hero of Hell's Reach, a living testament to the unbelievable resilience of faith. Finally, one cannot speak of the legends of the Black Templars without mentioning their most sacred and mysterious role, the Emperor's Champion. This role is not a rank to be earned through seniority or skill. It is a divine revelation. On the eve of a great battle, a battle brother within the chapter may be visited by a vision. It might be a fleeting image of the Emperor himself, or an overwhelming sense of holy purpose. When this warrior awakens and reports his experience to the chaplains, he is acclaimed as the Emperor's Champion. He sets aside his chapter armor and dons the armor of faith, an ancient suit, adorned with sacred scripts and holy symbols. He is bestowed with the black sword, not necessarily the original blade of Sigismund, but one of several master-crafted power swords, each a holy relic in its own right. From that moment, his duty is clear: to seek out and slay the leaders of the enemy in single combat. He is no longer an individual, but the Emperor's will made manifest in flesh and steel. He fights with a supernatural skill and bravery, shielded by his own faith and that of his entire chapter. Many tales are told of the Emperor's champions. Of Champion Raymond, who during the Gerstal Crusade single-handedly confronted and slew a demon prince of Slanesh, grievously wounded, but remaining standing until the battle was won. Or of Champion Adelard, who during the siege of Kandra charged through the fire of 1,000 traitors to challenge and behead their warlord, breaking the morale of their entire army. Each champion is a short-lived legend, a candle that burns brilliantly before it is extinguished, but their light has guided the Black Templars through their darkest hours. They are a reminder that even in a godless galaxy, the miracles of faith can still occur. The galaxy has been torn asunder. The Great Rift, a monstrous scar of warp energy, has bisected the Imperium, plunging thousands of worlds into darkness and madness. The era Indomitus has begun, an age of shadow and desperation. But for the Black Templars, it is merely a new test of their faith, a new battlefield for their eternal crusade. The most seismic event of this new era was the return of a Primarch. Robert Guilliman, the Avenging Sun, lived again. For most of the Imperium, this was a miracle, a ray of hope in the darkness. But for the Black Templars, it was a profound ideological crisis. For 10,000 years, they had worshipped the Emperor as a god. This faith was the bedrock of everything they did. And now they were faced with a son of that very god, a son who had stepped out of myth and flatly declared, "My father is not a god." Guilliman, a pragmatist, and the author of the Codex Astartes they had long ignored, represented everything their doctrine opposed. He spoke of reason, of strategy, of a secular Imperium, concepts the Black Templars had come to view as heresy. The meeting between High Marshal Helbrecht and Robert Guilliman was a moment of supreme tension. Helbrecht, one of the most zealous and powerful warriors in the galaxy, had to kneel before a man he both revered as a demigod and suspected as a potential disruption to their faith. How could a chapter that worships the Emperor absolutely reconcile the existence of a Primarch who denies his own father's divinity? The answer in true Black Templar fashion was not found in theological debate. It was found in action. They would prove their loyalty not with words but with deeds on the battlefield. They would fight in Guilliman's Indomitus crusade with even greater fervor than before, to prove that their faith, however mistaken in the Primarch's eyes, was still the Imperium's strongest weapon. Another challenge came in the form of the Primaris Marines. When Guilliman and Archmagos Belisarius Cawl unveiled this new generation of Space Marines, many chapters were suspicious. The Black Templars were no exception. Could these new warriors created in a laboratory possess true faith and piety? Or were they merely soulless war machines created by a tech heretic? Initially, there was a divide. Veteran Firstborn Templars looked upon their taller Primaris brethren with suspicion. However, that suspicion was quickly burned away in the crucible of war. The Primaris Marines of the Black Templars, perhaps to prove themselves, fought with an astonishing ferocity and zealotry. They threw themselves into the fiercest engagements, roaring prayers to the Emperor and showing no fear. They proved that faith resides not in old or new gen seed, but in the heart. The Black Templars quickly and fully integrated the Primaris warriors into their ranks, creating mixed Crusader squads and outfitting their sword brethren with the latest Primaris armor and weaponry. They did not just accept the change, they reforged it into a new weapon in the arsenal of their faith. In Guilliman's Indomitus crusade, the Black Templars became one of his most valuable assets. Their very nature with their autonomous crusade fleets made them the ideal spearhead for a war of reconquest in a fractured galaxy. They did not need a complex chain of command. A Templar fleet could be dispatched to an isolated sector and operate independently for decades, liberating worlds, purging heretics, and re-establishing imperial rule. They became the fires of vengeance, lighting up the darkest corners of the Imperium Nihilus. The galaxy may have changed, but the enemies remained the same, only stronger and more emboldened. The resurgence of chaos in the wake of the Great Rift gave the Black Templars countless new targets. Their old hatred for the traitor and the witch now burned hotter than ever. They fought the death guard of Mortarion on plague-ridden worlds, confronted the World Eaters of Angron in berserker rages, and hunted the cults of the Word-bearers, the very sowers of the faith they now practiced with such zeal. Their crusade had not changed in nature. It had only grown larger, more urgent, and more bloody. To the Black Templars, a galaxy divided was not a catastrophe. It was a promise. The promise of eternal war. So in the end, how are we to view the Black Templars? What is their legacy after 10,000 years of an unending crusade? Their nature is one of great irony, a reflection of the contradictions of the Imperium itself. They are the sons of Rogel Dorn, carrying the loyalty and steadfastness of the Imperial fists. Yet at the same time, they are the spiritual heirs of Lorgar, Aurelian, embodying the religious fanaticism the Emperor himself fought to eradicate. They are a chapter of Space Marines, super soldiers created by science, who fight with the power of blind faith. They are the symbol of how the Emperor's dream of a rational future died, and how from its ashes, an empire of zealotry and fear arose. Are they heroes or monsters? The answer depends on where you stand. To the billions of Imperial citizens saved from Xenos invasion or chaotic corruption, they are avenging angels, black armored knights sent by the God Emperor himself. They are the noblest of heroes, willing to sacrifice everything to protect humanity. But to those who stand in their path, to those of a different faith, or those simply unlucky enough to be in the way, they are tyrants, no different from the enemies they hunt. They are fanatics who have burned civilizations, slaughtered innocents, and extinguished any spark of difference in the name of a silent God. They are the darkness, in the name of the light. Perhaps they are both. Perhaps in a galaxy as cruel as the 41st millennium, there is no clear line between hero and monster. There is only survival and the terrible choices that must be made to achieve it. But whatever the answer, one truth is undeniable. Their crusade will continue. The fire lit in the heart of Sigismund 10,000 years ago still burns. For as long as a single traitor draws breath, as long as a single Xenos defiles the domains of man, as long as a single witch whispers their heresy, the Black Templars will be there. Their crusade is eternal, their faith is unbreakable, and they know no fear.